The mining colony was quiet at night, the kind of quiet that made every little sound seem louder. Ryan worked alone in the dim-lit repair bay. Fixing a cracked power conduit, the hum of the machines was the only thing keeping him company. Then, he heard a faint tapping sound, like metal against metal. It was slow at first, then quicker. Like someone was playing with a loose bolt. Ryan paused, looking over his shoulder. The corridor behind him was empty. Just a stretch of flickering lights and shadows. He shook his head and went back to work, but then came another sound, a soft, almost playful laugh. It was so quiet he almost thought he imagined it. Ryan stood up, scanning the corners. "Hello?" He called out, no answer, just the distant hum of the ventilation. He returned to the conduit, trying to ignore it, but this time, he caught a flash of movement in the corner of his eye. Something small darted behind a stack of cargo crates. Ryan grabbed his torchlight and slowly walked toward it. His footsteps echoed in the silence before he could get close. A figure stepped out. She was tiny, barely up to his chest. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer, and her silver eyes seemed to glow in the dark. Her hair, a messy streak of white and blue, framed a face that looked far too young to be wandering. Around alone, she crossed her arms and tilted her head. "You're slow, human," she said, in a voice that was both teasing and strange. Like she was half laughing at him. Ryan blinked. "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back into the shadows, letting the light catch on the small metal trinkets hanging from her belt. "Catch me, and maybe I'll tell you," she said. And before he could reply, she vanished into the darkness. Over. The next few days, Ryan saw her again, always at the edge of his vision. Sometimes she'd steal small tools, only to return them hours later. Other times she'd appear just to throw a mocking comment his way. "Humans are clumsy, or do. You always work this slow." At first, Ryan was annoyed. He had work to do. And the colony was already dangerous enough without strange visitors. But the more he saw her, the more he noticed the details she tried to hide. Her clothes were worn, patched in places with mismatched fabric. Her boots were too big and looked scavenged from the waste depot. And every so often, when she thought no one was listening, her stomach would growl softly. One evening, while Ryan was repairing a generator near the old freight tunnels, she appeared again, this time sitting casually on top of a crate, swinging her legs. "Still here, human?" she asked, a smirk on her face. Ryan put down his tools. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" "Do you?" She replied as if the question itself was a game. Ryan studied her for a moment. She had that same teasing smile, but her eyes seemed tired, like she hadn't slept properly in days. "Look, if you need food, I don't need anything from you," she cut in quickly, almost too quickly. She jumped down from the crate and began to walk away. Ryan frowned, but something in his gut told him there was more to her than she was letting on. He knew the colony wasn't a kind place for outsiders, especially for someone small and alone. The deeper tunnels were home to scavengers, smugglers, and worse. And if she was hiding there, she was either very brave, very desperate. The next night, she didn't show up. Ryan told himself it didn't matter, but he caught himself glancing toward the shadows more than once. Then, just as he was locking up, he heard that faint laugh again. Turning, he saw her leaning against the wall, arms folded. "Miss me?" she teased. Ryan shook his head. "You're a strange one, and you're too serious," she replied. Pushing off the wall, she walked past him, close enough for him to notice the faint scent of dust and machine oil on her clothes. "See you around, human," she disappeared into the night, leaving Ryan standing there, wondering why a part of him hoped she really would come back. Ryan decided he had two choices: either ignore the strange alien girl until she got bored, or try to figure out what game she was playing. Ignoring her didn't seem to work. She always came back. So he chose the second option, the next day. He was repairing an air filtration unit in the outer corridor when he caught sight of her again. She was crouched behind a supply crate. Pretending she wasn't watching him, her white tanned blue hair caught the dim light. Ryan pretended not to. Notice, he worked slowly, making more noise than usual. Then, without looking, he pulled a wrapped food ration from his pocket and set it on top of his toolbox. He went back to work, acting like he'd forgotten about it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw her head tilt. She waited. Watching him then, like a shadow, she crept forward. Her small hand reached for the food, but before she could grab it, Ryan spoke without turning. "You could just ask, you know?" She froze, her silver eyes narrowing. "I wasn't stealing," she said quickly. "I didn't say you were," Ryan replied, still pretending to tighten bolts. "I just thought you might be hungry." For a moment, she stood there, unsure. Then she sat, cross-legged on the floor, and opened the ration pack. She ate in silence, her eyes fixed on the floor. Ryan finally turned to face her. "So, do I get a name, or should I keep calling you strange girl?" She swallowed, wiped her mouth, and said, "Lyra." Her voice was soft now. Without the usual teasing, "Lyra," Ryan repeated. "You live here?" Her smirk returned. "Why? Do you want me to move in with you?" Ryan sighed. "I just mean nits." "Dangerous out here," she shrugged. "It's dangerous everywhere." Then she stood, brushing crumbs from her patched clothes. "Thanks for the food, human. Try not to miss me too much for the next week." This became their routine. She would appear without warning, sometimes perched high up on a pipe, sometimes sitting right on his workbench. She would tease him about his slow human hands or laugh when he dropped a tool. Yet she never stayed for long, always disappearing into the maze of corridors. Ryan noticed she never carried much, just a small satchel and a few metal trinkets. Sometimes she wore a scarf that looked far too big for her, almost like she used it as a blanket when sleeping in the tunnels. He also noticed she always seemed to know when the colony's security patrols were nearby. She would vanish before they came around, as if she could sense danger. One evening, Ryan decided to follow her. Not openly, he kept his distance. She moved fast, weaving through narrow maintenance shafts and abandoned sections of the colony. Eventually, she slipped into a hidden doorway behind a broken cargo lift. Ryan peeked inside but didn't enter. The space beyond looked like an old storage room, now piled with blankets, scrap metal, and small boxes of scavenged food. It was her hideout. He was about to leave when he heard voices down the hall. Harsh, mechanical voices, not human. Ryan pressed himself against the wall. Two figures in black armor were speaking to each other. Their voices low but tense. "She's here somewhere." One said, the tiny female, silver eyes, pale skin. "Orders are to take her alive." The other replied, "No mistakes this time." Ryan's jaw tightened. He waited until they left before slipping away. He didn't go back to the hideout. He didn't want to risk leading them to her. But that night, when Lyra appeared at his workbench again, still smirking like usual, he couldn't help blurting, "Who's looking for you?" Her smirk faded for a split second, then returned. "Why do you care?" "Because I saw them two armored men, asking questions about a small alien girl with silver eyes. Ryan said, if they find you, they won't." She cut in, picking up one of his tools and spinning it in her fingers. "Humans worry too much," Ryan frowned. "This isn't a game, Lyra." She set the tool down and hopped off the bench. "Everything's a game," she said, but her voice didn't sound as light as before. Then she walked away without looking back. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept seeing the way her expression had slipped when he mentioned the armored men. He had the feeling her teasing wasn't just her nature, was her way of hiding something dangerous. The next day, he found her sitting near the ventilation shaft. She had a fresh scrape on her cheek and a tear in her sleeve. Rough night?" he asked. "Just clumsy," she replied, pretending to yawn. Ryan sat beside her. "If you ever need a place to hide, I'm fine," she interrupted, standing up. "I don't need saving human." But as she turned away, he noticed her hands trembling ever so slightly for the first time since meeting her. Ryan realized the truth. Lyra wasn't just playing games with him. She was running from something, and if she kept running alone, she might not survive much longer. Ryan hadn't seen Lyra for 2 full days. In that time, the colony felt different. Quieter and somehow more tense. He kept catching glimpses of black armored patrols in places they normally didn't go. They weren't human security officers, they moved differently. Too precise, too silent, and every time Ryan saw them, they seemed to be scanning the shadows on the 3rd night. Ryan was working near the old freight elevators when he heard a faint metallic scrape. He looked up just in time to see Lyra stumble. Out of a side passage, she was breathing hard, and her teasing smirk was nowhere to be found. Her right arm was scraped and bleeding, and there was a faint burn mark across her side. She tried to straighten up when she saw him. "Don't look at me like that, human," she said, forcing a half smile. Ryan walked over quickly. "What happened?" "Nothing I couldn't handle," she muttered, trying to step past him, but he blocked her path. "Lyra," Ryan said firmly, "someone attacked you, didn't they?" She glanced away. "You ask too many questions, and you give too few answers," Ryan replied. "I saw them, those armored soldiers. They're hunting you, aren't they?" For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she finally looked at him, her silver eyes serious. "If I tell you, you'll wish you didn't know." "I already wish I didn't know," Ryan said. "But I'm not letting you bleed out in a hallway." She sighed and sat down on a low crate, pulling the scarf tighter around herself. "Fine," she said quietly. "I was part of something, a crew, a job." She hesitated, as if searching for the right words in human language. "We stole from the wrong people." Ryan frowned. "Who?" "They call themselves the Krail Syndicate," she said, her voice dropping. "They don't forgive, and they don't forget." Ryan had heard the name before, even out here on the edge of human space. The Krail Syndicate was an interstellar crime network. Smugglers, bounty hunters, mercenaries. They were known for making examples out of anyone who crossed them. "They think I know where the shipment is," Lyra continued, "but I don't. My crew scattered when they caught us. I ran, and you've been hiding here ever since." Ryan guessed. She gave a small nod. "Your colony is on the edge of their territory. I thought maybe I could disappear here." Then she gave a bitter laugh. "Turns out I'm not good at disappearing." Ryan thought about the way she kept showing up near him, teasing him, leaving food crumbs behind. She hadn't been trying to blend in. She'd been trying to distract herself, maybe even pretend she wasn't in danger. "You can't keep living like this," Ryan said. "If they find you, they will." She cut in, her voice flat. "It's only a matter of time." Her calm acceptance made Ryan's stomach twist. "Not if I help you," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "You don't even know me." "Maybe not," Ryan admitted. "But I know what it's like to be hunted. I'm not letting them take you for a second." Her usual teasing expression returned. "You're a strange human," she said softly. Before Ryan could answer, a sharp, metallic thud echoed down the corridor. Lyra's head snapped toward the sound. Her ears, or whatever sense she had, were sharper than his. She grabbed his wrist. "They're close," she whispered. Ryan glanced around. The nearest exit was too far. Instead, he pulled her toward a maintenance hatch. They slipped inside. Just as heavy footsteps approached through the thin panel of the hatch, Ryan could see 2 Krail soldiers scanning the area. Their visors glowed faint red. Tracking signature is faint. One said in a low, mechanical tone, "She was here recently. We sweep the lower levels next." The other replied, "Orders say alive, but breathing is optional." Ryan's fists clenched. He kept his breathing slow until they finally moved on, when the sound of their boots faded. He opened the hatch. Lyra stepped out and leaned against the wall, her voice low. "You shouldn't have done that." "Done what?" "Made yourself part of this," she said. "Now they'll mark you too." Ryan shrugged. "Then I guess we both have a problem." For a long moment, they just stood there in the dim light. The air between them felt heavier than before. No teasing. No games, just the quiet understanding that whatever came next, it was going to be dangerous. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "If you really want to help, you'll have to hide me. Somewhere better than a ventilation shaft." Ryan gave a half smile. "I might know a place." She raised an eyebrow, "And here I thought humans were all boring." Ryan shook his head. "You really don't stop, do you?" She grinned faintly. "If I stop teasing, I might start thinking about how bad this is." Ryan didn't say it out loud, but he understood exactly what she meant. And as they moved deeper into the colony's underbelly, he realized this wasn't just about hiding her anymore. This was about keeping her alive, no matter the cost. Ryan's quarters were small, barely big enough for a narrow bed, a desk, and a wall cabinet. It wasn't much, but it was private. The colony's patrols rarely checked personal rooms unless someone gave them a reason, and Ryan made sure never to give them one when he led Lyra inside. She stopped at the doorway, looking around with narrowed eyes. "This is where you live?" she asked, her tone somewhere between curiosity and mischief. "It's not a palace," Ryan said, "but it's safe." She stepped inside, rushing her fingers across the wall as if testing it for hidden traps. "Safe is boring," she teased. But there was no real bite to her words this time. Ryan pointed to the corner. "You can stay there when you need to hide." She raised an eyebrow. "What? No welcome feast? No human hospitality?" He sighed, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a sealed pack of rations. Tossing it to her, she caught it easily and grinned. Better, for the first 2 days, they kept things simple. Ryan went about his repair jobs during the day, and Lyra stayed inside, sleeping on a blanket roll he'd put on the floor. Sometimes when he returned, he'd find her sitting cross-legged on his bed, messing with his tools or studying the small star map on his wall. "You humans keep maps of the stars you've never even visited," she said one evening. "Why?" "To know where we're going," Ryan replied. She gave a small smile. "Most people don't care where they're going. It's where they can survive the longest." At night, Ryan would hear her moving quietly, never staying still for long. It was like she couldn't fully relax, even when she slept. Her hands stayed close to the small blade she carried. The more time they spent together, the more her teasing softened, instead of mocking him. She'd make light comments about his stubbornness, or ask strange questions about human life. "Do all humans drink bitter black water in the morning? Why do you cover your feet indoors? Is it true humans can't see in the dark at all?" One night, while Ryan was working on a small generator part at his desk, she leaned over his shoulder, her breath warm against his ear. "You work too much," she whispered. "I work to eat." Ryan replied without looking up. She smirked, and, "Here, I thought you worked to impress me." Before he could respond, a loud knock rattled the door. Ryan froze. Lyra's playful expression vanished instantly. She moved silently to the corner. Crouching low behind the cabinet, Ryan opened the door just enough to see one of the colony's human security officers. "Routine sweep," the man said. "Mind if I take a quick look?" Ryan forced a casual shrug. "Go ahead." The officer stepped inside. Scanning the room with a small handheld device, Lyra stayed completely still, her breathing slow and silent. The officer didn't seem to notice anything unusual. After a quick look, he nodded and left. Ryan closed the door and exhaled slowly. Lyra stepped out from hiding. "You're lucky he was human," she said quietly. The Krail wouldn't have left so quickly. Then we'll make sure they never get this far. Ryan replied. Over the next week, their small room became a strange mix of tension and familiarity. Lyra started cooking with the limited supplies Ryan had, making meals that were surprisingly good despite the lack of ingredients. She teased him about his boring human recipes, but she always made sure he ate. One evening, Ryan returned from work earlier than usual and found Lyra sitting at his desk, tracing lines on the star map. "What are you doing?" he asked. She didn't look up, finding places the Krail won't follow me. Ryan stepped closer, and she glanced at him, her silver eyes catching the light. "There aren't many," she said softly. The unspoken truth hung in the air. Her safety here was temporary. The more time she stayed, the more danger would come to his door. That night, as they sat eating in silence, Lyra finally spoke. "You know I can't stay here forever." "I know," Ryan replied, "but for now, you're here, and that's what matters." She studied him for a moment, then gave a small, genuine smile. "You're strange, human," she said. "Most people would have thrown me out the first night. Most people aren't me," Ryan said simply. Lyra leaned back, her eyes still on him. For once, there was no teasing. No smirk, just a quiet understanding between them. Outside, the colony continued its usual hum of activity. But inside Ryan's small quarters, time seemed to slow. For now, at least, Lyra was safe, and Ryan intended to keep it that way, no matter how close the danger crept. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a distant alarm. A deep, pulsing sound that shook the thin metal walls of Ryan's quarters. He was halfway through repairing a small comms unit when it started. Lyra froze where she was sitting, a half-eaten piece of bread in her hand. Her silver eyes sharpened instantly. "That's not a fire alarm," she said quietly. "No," Ryan replied, setting down his tools. "It's a security sweep." Within seconds, the colony's overhead speakers crackled to life. "Attention, security inspection in progress. All residents remain in your assigned quarters until cleared." Lyra stood, the scarf around her shoulders slipping slightly. "They're looking for me," she said flatly. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then they're not going to find you." They moved quickly, Ryan pushing the desk aside to reveal the maintenance hatch he'd prepared days ago. "Inside," he said. She hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll keep them distracted," Ryan replied. "Just stay silent." Lyra crouched inside the hatch, curling herself into the small space. Ryan slid the panel closed, then pushed the desk back into place. His heart was already pounding. The knock came faster than he expected, loud, heavy, not like the casual taps of the human patrols. This was deliberate. Ryan opened the door a crack. Two armored figures stood there, their black plating reflecting the hallway's dim lights. Krail soldiers were conducting a search. One of them said, their voice metallic and cold, "Step aside." Ryan forced a shrug. "Go ahead. There's not much to see here." The first soldier stepped inside, scanning the small room. His partner followed, a faint red glow flickering across his visor as his gaze swept over every surface. Ryan stood by the door, trying to keep his breathing steady. One of them picked up a wrench from the desk, turning it over slowly. "You work maintenance?" He said. "Yeah," Ryan replied. "Keeps the lights on." The soldier didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the corner near the maintenance hatch. Ryan's pulse spiked. "Problem?" Ryan asked casually, trying to step between them. The soldier turned his visor toward him. "Why is the desk moved slightly from the wall?" Ryan's mind raced. "Because I just cleaned behind it yesterday." He said, "You know how dust builds up." The soldier stared at him for a long, silent moment before finally turning away. "Clear," he said to his partner. They left without another word. The heavy door ceiling behind them Ryan waited until the sound of their boots faded before moving the desk again and opening the hatch. Lyra slipped out, her face pale. "That was too close," she whispered. "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "They're not just guessing anymore. They know you're here for the rest of the day." The alarms continued. The Krail were moving through every sector. Ryan could feel the tension in the air. Every knock, every footstep in the hall made. His shoulders tightened that night, just as they were settling into uneasy silence. Another knock came softer, this time almost polite. Ryan and Lyra exchanged a look. Ryan opened the door to find Officer Hale. One of the human security officers he'd spoken to before. Hale looked uneasy. "Ryan, listen to me, those black armored. Things aren't part of our patrol. They've bypassed our systems." "I know," Ryan said. "They're after someone." Hale's gaze flicked past him. "That someone's in here, isn't she?" Ryan didn't answer. Hale sighed. "Look, I'm not here to turn her in, but you need to move her now. They're tightening the search grid. If they check this sector again, they'll tear your place apart." Lyra stepped into view before Ryan could stop her. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Hale glanced at her. "Because I've seen what the Krail do to people they catch," he said, "and no one deserves that. They had minutes, maybe less." Ryan grabbed a small pack from the wall, stuffing in food, water, and a blanket. "We'll head to the old freight tunnels," he said. "They won't risk sending full squads in there." As they slipped into the corridor, the alarm changed pitch. A sharper, faster, pulse-closer danger. Ryan could feel Lyra's hand gripping his sleeve as they moved quickly through the half-lit halls. Twice, they had to duck into side rooms as patrols passed. The Krail soldiers moved with precision. Scanning every shadow, Ryan kept his body between them and Lyra. Finally, they reached the service hatch that led down to the tunnels. Ryan pried it open, and they climbed down into darkness. The air was damp and smelled faintly of rust, but it was quiet, too quiet. They found an old storage bay deep in the tunnels. Lyra sank onto a crate, breathing hard. "We can't keep running like this," she said. Ryan sat across from her. "Then we make them stop chasing you." She gave a bitter laugh. "You make it sound easy?" He met her gaze. "It's not easy. But I'm not letting them take you for a moment." Neither spoke. The sound of distant machinery was the only thing between them. Then Lyra's voice softened. "You really are a strange human," she said. "Most people would have given me up by now." Ryan leaned back. "Most people don't have a reason to fight." Lyra's smirk returned, just slightly. "And I'm your reason." Ryan didn't answer, but the look in his eyes said everything. The tunnels were cold at night. The air was damp. And every sound seemed to echo forever. Ryan had chosen the old storage bay because it had only one entrance and a half-broken door that could be blocked with crates. It wasn't comfortable, but it was hidden. Lyra sat on one of the crates, her scarf pulled tight around her shoulders. "You humans like dark places like this?" she asked, her tone light, but her eyes still scanning the shadows. "No," Ryan said, as he adjusted a small portable heater. "But I like breathing, and this is the safest place right now." The heater gave off a faint hum, casting a soft orange glow in the room. Lyra moved closer to it, holding her hands out to the warmth. Ryan noticed the slight tremble in her fingers. "You're freezing," he said. "Here." He took off his jacket and handed it to her. She hesitated. "I don't wear human clothes," she teased, but there wasn't much strength in her voice. "Just put it on," Ryan said. She did, the sleeves far too long for her small frame. She looked down at herself and smirked faintly. "I look ridiculous. You?" "Look warmer," Ryan replied. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of the heater filling the space between them outside. The distant hum of machinery and the occasional clang of metal reminded them that the colony never truly slept. Somewhere above, the Krail were still searching. Lyra leaned back against the wall. I can't remember the last time I stayed in one place for more than a night. She said softly, when you're running, you don't rest, you just move. Ryan glanced at her. You can rest here. Her silver eyes met his, and for once, she didn't look away. Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't owe me anything, because I can, Ryan said simply. And because I want to, she gave a small smile. The kind that seemed almost shy. Most people I meet want something in return. Ryan didn't reply. He reached into his pack and pulled out one of the ration bars. Breaking it in half. Eat, he said, handing her a piece. She took it. Their fingers brushing for just a moment. Bossy, she teased, but she ate without complaint. Hours passed slowly. The warmth of the heater made the storage bay feel less like a hiding place and more like a temporary shelter. Lyra shifted from her crate to sit on the floor near Ryan. Her knees drawn up, she rested her chin on them, watching the small flame inside the heater flicker. On my planet, she began, her voice quiet. Nights are bright. The moons light up the sky so much you can see the rivers shining from the mountains. Sounds beautiful, Ryan said. It was, she replied. Before the Krail came, they took people, resources. Everything. She paused, her voice tightening. That's how I ended up in the crew I told you about. Stealing was the only way to survive. Ryan wanted to say something, but he knew there wasn't much he could say to make that pain lighter. Instead, he simply said, You're not there anymore. You're here. She gave a faint laugh, and here I am, sitting in a dark human hole. Hiding from the same monsters, but not alone, Ryan said. She looked at him for a long moment, then shifted closer. Her shoulder brushed against his. The contact was light, almost hesitant. But she didn't move away. The night grew colder. The heater hummed softly, and Lyra eventually pulled Ryan's jacket tighter around herself. She let out a slow breath. I should sleep, she murmured. You should, Ryan agreed, instead of moving back to her crate. She lay down right beside him, curling up with her back to his side. This doesn't mean I trust you completely, human, she whispered. Ryan smiled faintly. I'll take what I can get. Minutes passed. Her breathing slowed, and her body relaxed against his. Ryan didn't move. Afraid of waking her, he stared at the faint light from the heater and listened to the steady rhythm of her breath. It was strange. Just a few days ago, she had been a mocking voice in the shadows, stealing his tools and calling him slow. Now she was here, pressed close, trusting him enough to sleep while he kept watch. Ryan knew they couldn't stay like this forever. The Krail would find their trail sooner or later. But for tonight, at least, she was safe. And that was enough. Lyra shifted slightly in her sleep, murmuring something he couldn't understand in her own language. He glanced down at her, wondering if she was dreaming of her home or of the long days she had spent running. Whatever it was, Ryan silently promised that he would do everything he could to make sure she saw more nights like this, warm, safe, and without fear. Ryan woke to the sound of distant metal clanging. It wasn't the normal hum of the colony. This was sharper, deliberate. He opened his eyes slowly, careful not to disturb Lyra. She was still curled against him, her breathing steady. He glanced toward the doorway of the storage bay. The light from the hallway was faint, but it flickered, meaning movement outside. His chest tightened. A voice came through the corridor, metallic and cold. Sweep Sector 4. She's close. Ryan's jaw clenched. The Krail had found their way into the tunnels. He gave Lyra a gentle shake. Wake up, he whispered. She stirred, her silver eyes opening slowly. What? She started to ask, but Ryan put a finger to his lips. They're here, he said softly. In an instant, she was fully awake, pulling on her boots and tightening the scarf around her neck. She looked toward the door, her jaw set. We can run. "Deeper into the tunnels," she whispered. Ryan shook his head. "They'll block the exits. We won't get far." She gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Then I guess this is the end." "No," Ryan said firmly. "Not for you." She froze. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, the orange light from the heater casting shadows across his face. "There's a supply ship leaving at dawn from the outer dock. It's old and slow, but it's heading out of Krail territory. If you're on it, you have a chance, and you." She asked quietly. Ryan hesitated. Someone has to distract them, draw them away from the dock. Her eyes narrowed. "No. I'm not leaving you here to face them alone. You don't have a choice," Ryan said. "If they catch you, it's over." Lyra stepped closer, her voice sharp. "You think I've survived this long by letting other people fight my battles? You're wrong, human." Ryan took a deep breath. "This isn't about battles. It's about survival. If you go with me, we both die. If you go alone, you live." For a long moment, they just stood there, the sound of boots echoing faintly. Down the hall, the Krail were getting closer. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You're a fool, maybe," Ryan replied, "but it's my choice." She stared at him, her teasing smile gone completely. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. The hug was quick, but strong. "If you die, I'll find you and kill you again," she muttered. Ryan gave a faint smile. "Deal." They moved quickly, slipping out through a narrow side passage Ryan had found earlier. It led to an old service shaft that connected to the upper levels. Ryan guided her toward a small ladder. "Climb up. Follow the tunnel until you see light. The dock will be on your left." She looked at him one last time. "Come with me," she said, her voice almost breaking. "I will," Ryan lied. "Just after I make sure they're not following." Lyra's silver eyes searched his face, as if she could see straight through the words, but she didn't argue. She climbed the ladder, her steps quick and silent. Ryan waited until she was gone, then turned toward the sound of approaching boots. He moved into the open corridor, making sure to leave a trail of noise for the Krail to follow. When the first soldier appeared, Ryan didn't run immediately. He let them see him, then bolted. Leading them away from the dock tunnels, shouts and heavy footsteps followed. The chase was brutal. The air in the lower tunnels was cold and thick with dust. But Ryan kept moving, darting around corners and through maintenance hatches. Every step he took was one more second Lyra had to get away. Back in the upper levels, Lyra reached the outer dock. The supply ship's ramp was already lowering. She glanced over her shoulder, hoping to see Ryan, but the tunnel behind her was empty. She hesitated for just a moment, her chest tight, then she ran up the ramp. The dock crew barely glanced at her before sealing the hatch. Moments later, the ship rumbled to life, pulling away from the colony as the stars came into view through the small port window. Lyra pressed her hand against the cold glass. Somewhere back in the maze of tunnels, Ryan was still running, still fighting to keep his promise. Her silver eyes narrowed. "You better be alive when I see you again." "Human," she whispered, back in the colony's depths. Ryan ducked into a dark maintenance bay, the sound of the Krail patrol fading in the distance. He leaned against the wall, catching his breath. A faint smile crossed his face as he imagined Lyra's ship slipping beyond their reach. For now, she was safe, and that was enough.